At just 30 years old, our next guest unexpectedly inherited the family funeral business. Lisa Baue learned so much from that experience and many others, she decided to write a book about it. Join us today as we revisit and explore a few of those life lessons she learned along the way. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Welcome to the podcast. So good to see you.
You as well. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
So you're coming to us from where today? Looks like maybe Colorado, am I guessing?
You could be right. My husband and I have a home in Colorado and in St. Charles, Missouri, where my hometown is, but we hang out here on a little bitty ranch where we have dogs, horses, cats, and so forth, and just get away. Back in the day when I was planning on what I was going to do to get back into my childhood passions, and I wanted horses again. And so here I meet this wonderful guy from Colorado and had a chance to get a little ranch and have some horses. So I've been blessed.
That's so smart. You are. And let me officially introduce you. And for those who may not know Lisa Baue, I think most of our audience has at least heard of you, but you are an author and a funeral director, a former funeral director, a podcaster, a leader in the funeral profession. And I'd looked through your community involvement in the back of your awesome book, by the way, called Wake Up Calls.
Well, thank you.
And there's too
Thank you
many
for
to
having
list
it.
here.
Well,
Great book.
funeral directors are so involved in their communities. I have to tell you, it is by design, and something that was part of my joy and my passion when I was I'm still licensed, but when I was fully an owner. So just loved it.
Well, so what did I miss on your introduction? Did I get it all right?
Well, you did great. You did great.
Thank you.
You know, I'm the former CEO of Baue Funeral Homes Crematory and Cemetery. We served about 2,500 families a year when I retired. Wow. We started off as a very small little family business in St. Charles, Missouri, founded by my grandfather. And of course, I was not in a good place back in 1987. I was licensed for 8 years when my dad died, and I ended up becoming the CEO and having an opportunity to purchase the business, and went into a lot of debt. So that was a lot of fun. But I learned a lot. We'll talk about that. I'm also the founder of Funeral Women Lead, a new organization that is serving the profession. And we are a foundation that is becoming known for helping women with wellness and leadership development. It's been an interesting journey. There were a lot of naysayers over the years that said, oh, no, women don't need this. You can't just isolate women by themselves. And you know, Paul, I spent most of my career blending in and fitting in with a large group of men because I was in the minority when I was young. And women are still in the minority. In fact, NFDA is sharing that about 26% of their membership are women owners and managers and funeral directors. So we're still not there yet as a profession, but we do have a 75% women graduation rate right now, according to the American Board of Funeral Service Education, coming into our field every single year.
That's
and
so wild. And I know
growing.
that, by the way, because I actually read the book, and you have
Yep,
that in there.
it's in there.
So you were quite the trailblazer when it comes to leading in the funeral profession. So, and I mean this, kudos to you for having the courage to lead out in that way. And, you know, a lot of people talking about, hey, I should write a book. You know, I've had a lot of life experiences, but very few people actually do it. But you are one of those people who actually did it.
I tried. You know, lots of your friends and family will tell you, oh my gosh, Lisa, your stories and all the things that you've been through, you really should share that with the world. And that's a hard thing to do. As I started digging into it and figuring out what am I going to put in this book and what stories will I tell and what stories can't I tell, because there's always things that you need
told
to leave,
quite a few.
need to leave.
I mean, you were pretty vulnerable in there, and you were pretty open, I might say.
I was. I have to thank Stacey Ennis, my book coach at staceennis.com. She's amazing. She's an amazing instructor, and she really drew it out of me. She said, "Look, Lisa, you have to tell your story in a special way, but you also have to get real with what happened to you." And it wasn't just happening to me, it was happening in our profession and to my entire team. And a lot of it was my fault, Paul. A lot of it, I was young, I was naive, I didn't have the training, I didn't know how to be a good leader. I knew nothing about business. I was a licensed funeral director for 8 years when my dad died.
You had a Spanish degree, though. You learned some Spanish.
Sí, yo puedo
With a
hablar
minor
la
in
lengua de la
Portuguese.
gente de México, sí? Yes, I was a
Claro que
Spanish
sí.
major. Claro que sí.
Increíble.
Ah, sí, tú hablas también, ¿verdad? Yeah,
No,
so
no.
anyway, he speaks well. He does. He's got the accent too, Paul. So I majored in Spanish and minored in Portuguese in high school and college and traveled and went down and studied in Mexico. However, I didn't know what I was going to do with that career. My dad told me to go to college and just grow up. And so I think I did a little of that. However, I came out with no job, working in a travel industry, very dissatisfied. It was a desk job. I'm not a desk job person.
Yeah.
Sitting there stamping brochures before computers, right? And so
Good
handwriting
times.
tickets.
Good times.
Yeah, it was horrible. And Dad knew I was a people person and saw that inside of me and said, "Hey, why don't you think about funeral service?" So I thought, well, girls don't do that, Dad. You don't have any women working there. He goes, well, they're starting to. So I said, okay, well, let me think about that. And I went away back to a camp in northern Wisconsin, finished a summer there. There was a guy I thought I was kind of in love with. It turns out he was a funeral director. And I think my dad saw the writing on the wall. I thought, ooh, I could get two for the price of one, maybe. So they say, well, I started.
Your dad was a wise man. And
Yeah, he was. He really was. In fact, he was the very first starter of a women's program in our profession. Back when it was the National Foundation of Funeral Service, before it became the Funeral Service Foundation, Dad started a women's professional program. And I went to all three of them before he died, and they continued on, and I helped grow them along with some other women in our profession to where it is today. Once it transitioned to NFDA, I was on their board of directors during the transition. And NFDA has taken it to a new level with the Professional Women's Conference now has well over 150 women that attended last year.
so exciting. That's good.
Yeah, and we do scholarships for Dad's memory because he really saw the future of women in the profession, and I think believed more in me than I believed in myself in my early years. So I was, wanted to do something to honor him, as well as show women that, you know what, there are people out there to support you, and we are here to do anything we possibly can to help you become successful leaders in the future.
100%. Well, let's talk about the book a little bit. I've
Sure.
got mine inked and marked, highlighted, red, black ink, stars, all kinds of good nuggets in there.
Well, my husband, the librarian, would scold you for that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, well, it's
I
my
can't
copy.
even. I know. I can't even turn a page.
So let's talk about, how did you come up with the title? And I think it's a great title. When you talk about
thank you.
wake-up calls, it's perfect.
Well, it is kind of a play on words.
Yeah.
Being funeral directors,
Double entendre, is that what they call
right,
that?
double entendre, exactly. So we get woken up in the middle of the night, and it all really. My journey started as becoming and learning to become an owner, learning to become a leader and a manager of people. And with the phone ringing at 2 a.m. in the morning on
Yeah.
April 11th, 1987, when we got the news that my dad had died. He was actually at the Order of the Golden Rule International Conference when he
At
died.
the time. And
At
it was
the
on his
time.
birthday, wasn't it?
On his birthday. I thought, who does that, right?
Unbelievable.
A funeral director dies on his birthday. I guess he didn't want us to forget it.
He did not, and we haven't.
And we have not, exactly. So, and as that happened, that was my first wake-up call. And as you dig into the book, you really don't have a title in your head right away.
Right.
You kind of think through it. But as I started sharing my stories, I thought every single one of these were wake-up calls for me. That something
Yes.
was amiss, something wasn't right, something I needed to improve on, learn from, accept my mistakes, and fix the problem, and figure out how to fix the problem with a lot of help from mentors and coaches and friends.
Yeah, it's
And-
so
and-
good, though, that you said
Yeah.
that because, death is the ultimate wake-up call, right?
Right.
And, we're in the pre-need planning business, and in a lot of ways, we use that as a wake-up call for our potential customers and clients and those things. And so, but not only is death a wake-up call, a lot of the wake-up calls that you mentioned, happen all the time, whether it be a change in health status or a life event, or what are some other wake-up calls that may come to mind that you maybe mentioned in the book?
Well, one of them was when we had apparently we have a very strong union presence in the St. Louis area, and we had an attempt to unionize twice during my tenure. And what I learned from that is it's not an easy process to go through, but what I learned from that was that we were not taking good care of our staff. They did not feel loved and cared for. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. I was more focused on the families, the customer service, the growth of the company. Obviously, as an owner, you have to be focused on paying down your debt because I had a lot of debt, and you had to be profitable. And I was finding all ways I possibly could, with a lot of help from a lot of people, to try to save money and then spend it in the right ways. I really didn't know much about running a business when Dad died, and I was scared to death, Paul. And I had no background in business. So I had to rely on the people that worked for us, as well as some of the consultants that Dad had hired in the beginning to teach me how a business should run and operate. So I was so focused on running and operating the business, being active out in the community as you are, right? You're constantly, as a funeral director, you volunteer for this and that. You're in Rotary or another service organization. You're on various boards. And I wasn't paying attention to the right things. Yes, those are important as an owner. You have to be visibly present in your community. But I wasn't bringing my staff along. I wasn't teaching them or training them or helping them feel like they mattered. And because of that, we went through this whole union negotiations. We won the vote, but it was really a difficult time for our company. And it was a big wake-up call for me that I was not a good leader. And that's that is very hard to accept sometimes in yourself, that you failed people. Because
Well,
I
you're
believe
right
in
about that.
caring for people, right? Not failing
One
them.
one of the things that stood out to me in the book, lots of things, but you had a real bias for action in a lot of ways. I mean, you referenced your 360-degree performance review. I don't know exactly what you called it, but that's,
Yes.
it takes some
A
courage
wake-up
to
call.
do that. Yeah, that's a wake-up call, because
It is.
you're
It
putting
is.
yourself out there when you're letting people evaluate you and your performance and your leadership and how
Right.
much you care. And so, but you also got into reading books because you needed to learn more. You got into study groups, because you wanted a mentor. So, I mean, hats off for some of the things that you did there. What comes to mind as you hear those references?
Well, I think a guy named Larry Beeson, who started an organization called the Leaders Network. It no longer exists today. However, it was a group of us that my good friend John Horan, who was in my owner's study group, brought us all together to Denver, Colorado. Another reason I love Colorado is I spent a lot of time here. And we started to learn about leadership from Larry. Larry was a former Western Region Vice President for Batesville Casket Company, and he had a background in human resource development. And he taught us so much, and he had us start reading books together. We read John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership as one of our beginning books. And then he would take us out and we'd study best practices. We'd go to different cities and places where we'd go behind the scenes at the Ritz-Carlton or at Disney, and we learned how they cared for and organized and managed their teams. And that was a real eye-opening experience for all of us as owners, to get away from funeral service and get into other businesses to find out how they operated. The other thing Larry taught us is about caring for people, caring for ourselves first as leaders. We needed to do a better job in work-life balance areas. None of us took care of ourselves. We were all hard hitters, fast operators, working to grow our business. We were young, we were enthusiastic, we were not spending time on caring for ourselves. So he started there with a lot of us, and then he also coached us in areas of caring for our staff. So as we learned this, I said to Larry, hey, would you come into Baue's and run a 360 on me and a couple of my top leaders? Because I think we need more leadership development as a team. I know I do personally. So that's how it got started. And I cried. I got my results and I literally cried because I had let my people down. And Paul, that's a look in the mirror. That's a serious wake-up call when you realize that I wasn't the kind of leader they needed of me. And that was important for me to learn to change. And then Larry started coaching me from there. And we brought in other leadership coaches. His right hand was Marguerite Ham with Igniting Success. She's an amazing woman, still out there training and teaching leadership. And Marguerite got a hold of our staff, and I said, we have to take leadership to the next level. How do we help our teams develop their leadership skills? So we went all the way to the front lines. Anywhere from the guys that were amazing at opening and closing graves and caring for our cemetery, to our housekeepers, to our part-time staff, our care center team, our funeral director team, our assistants and part-time assistants at night. Everyone got leadership training and development at Baue's.
That's
We
so
started
good.
Bowie University, and
Yeah,
that was
I
big.
read that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and what stood out to me, I don't think you mentioned in this word exactly in the book that I recall. I could have missed it, but you were vulnerable, I thought, in that way. And that is a good leadership lesson. I think your staff probably felt that vulnerability.
Yeah.
Anytime you do a 360-degree, evaluation, you're opening yourself up a little bit. And some of the other things
do.
that you did, you are vulnerable, but you're also showing the heart that you have for your business,
Right.
for your people.
Right.
And I think that stood out.
Thank you. Well, you try. I did
Yeah.
share the results with them, and I cried, and I cried openly in front of them. I mean, I'm the kind of person. I was raised a very tough German kid by tough German grandparents and parents. You don't show tears, right? Like there's no crying in funeral service, really. So I had to show
There's
that
no
heart.
crying in baseball. That's what it reminds me of. There's no
I
crying in
know,
funeral service.
exactly. There's no crying in funeral service. I actually said that to one of my employees one time, and I wanted to shoot myself afterwards. I was like, "What? Wait, that was probably didn't come out right."
Can I do this over? Can we back up here?
Can I back that up? I was so disappointed, and I said, "But what I mean by that is that we have to rely sometimes on our grit and our resilience." And we have to have thick skin in this business because there's a lot of death. You're surrounded by a lot of death, a lot of emotions, and your people are out there that you support, your team, dealing with it every single day. And it's just so hard sometimes, especially when you have tragic losses and the little ones die.
Yes, and you referenced some of those in the book, and I appreciate how open you were about how difficult that is. Mm-hmm. But I forgot the phrase that you used it when you're meeting. I'm not a licensed funeral director, but this is all I've done since 1997. So I've been around many other funeral directors, and
Sure.
we talk about the arrangement conference and how sacred that is.
Yes.
And you didn't really get right down to the brass tacks, so to speak. You really wanted to know the person and learn about the deceased before you got into that. And what did you call that? It was a process.
I think there's an icebreaker kind of thing. You can talk.
Yeah,
you
an
can,
icebreaker.
You can call it icebreaker. It's a time where you just sit and listen, and you ask open-ended questions, and you ask families to tell us about your loved one. I'd like to learn more about them and their life, the things that gave them joy, the things that they struggled with, but some of their hobbies and interests. So we were doing that way back in the day. That was something I was taught by my dad and my managers, our managers at Baue, that it was important to get to know the deceased as well as their family members and show more interest in them. And so that was the very beginnings of my training. And, that's something I think is still very, very important because you can't just be that order taker, undertaker, just sitting there asking date of birth and, all that stuff in the beginning. You have to gain their confidence by getting to know them and that show them that you truly care for them.
Well, and you do that a lot of ways, as I understand it, through the questions that you ask. The more empathetic that you are and the more sincere that you are, the more that you symbolize that you care about them.
Exactly. You have to use that heart piece, and that's very important. Families need to see that you care. And your staff needs to see that you care. I mean, there were staff members I didn't even know. We were growing so fast at Bowie's. After my dad died, our community was exploding. And I didn't even know when their birthdays were. So we made a lot of changes after I was trained better as a leader and coached by Larry Beeson and some of my friends. Then I was able to take some of that to the next level with our team to help them feel like we truly cared about them. We celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, new babies, engagements. I mean, we had a staff newsletter that celebrated all of that, but we also did it in person. We had baby showers, wedding showers, bachelorette parties, bachelor parties. We did everything we could to create a family atmosphere as our company was growing. Because at the end,
Sounds like you
we
had
were
an
at
amazing culture there at Bowie.
Yes, we did. But culture doesn't happen by itself, right? There's a lot of listening you have to do as well, Paul. You have to ask questions, open-ended questions of your team and say, how can I be a better supervisor for you? How can I be a better owner? How can I better meet your needs in your role? What more do you see yourself doing in the future? And those are the questions we should be asking our team members each and every week when we meet with them.
Every organization has a culture. It just may not be the one that you want. It may not be the ideal one, right? So I love the questions that you brought up there.
Exactly. And if you're experiencing a lot of turnover as an owner, you're going to find that you're not meeting the needs of your people. There's things called exit interviews and all this HR stuff, but really sit down and try to get to the bottom of it. If they won't share it with you, maybe they'll share it with someone else on your team. that can go in and just say, hey, tell me really the reasons why you're leaving, and listen. As an owner, as a manager, as a supervisor, you have to spend time and make time to listen to your team members. And that doesn't happen easily, especially in a crazy funeral service world. But plan it, a monthly meeting with each and every team member that you possibly can. I used to go out to all of our staff meetings. I would make it a point to have a personal one-on-one with every team member at Baue's, all 120 of them, at least once a year, a minimum. And then I would show up at their team meetings, which were, some of them were weekly, some of them were monthly. You have to get to know your people. They need to get to know you, and they need to feel like you truly care for them as a family member. And I think that's even more essential now with these young people that we see coming into our profession. They're looking for a home. They're looking for a mission, and they're looking for people who care for them as much as we all care for our client families.
Well said, because what I was thinking about here, and you kind of hit on it before I was able to ask it, but where there's somewhat of a shortage of funeral professionals in the business right now. So every time we have a conversation with a funeral owner, we wish we could find good people. We can't
Right.
find good people. And so what you're saying is, or what I heard you say, if we can establish that kind of culture, we will attract talent. Well, we will attract people
We
wanting to
will,
come to work.
and it'll get around your community. So your staff will talk to their friends, and their friends will talk to their friends and family. And all of a sudden, what happens is you are now the number one place people want to work. It's
Yeah.
word of mouth reputation that actually takes place. And plus, your team members, especially your licensees, they have friends from mortuary school. They probably stay in touch with a lot of their friends. And the next thing you know, you've got a friend of a friend calling a friend of a friend, hey, you ought to come to work for Baue's. And it's a
Here's
great
what they
place
do.
to work. Right. They
They
really
actually care.
They actually care, exactly.
actually
And they
care.
still do. We have some great programs going on that truly support our staff still to this day, because we instilled it in the hearts of those that are still with us today in management. And they believe in caring for their staff in special ways. How can you expect your staff to give special care to families who are mourning if you don't show the same level of care to them? You can't. So the other part of recruitment, though, in retention is not just the word of mouth, but you have to share with, like on your website, if you have an area of your website that shares what you are as a culture, you have your mission, your vision, and your values up there, where people can see what kind of company you are and how much you truly care for others. That's critical to market that as much as you can. That's one of the keys, I believe, to recruiting new team members. Ask and get out to the mortuary schools, get in your high schools and start giving tours. Bring them into your company and show them around. Show them what a crematory looks
Start
like.
early.
Yeah, start early. If you can get them in
I
high
love
school. We used to do a lot of high school tours and talks. Get with some of the business clubs in the different high schools in your area. You have to also work to grow your own. Get some of these young people in early. I hear stories from these young people trying to go to mortuary school. I've stopped by my local funeral home, and they're not giving me any ideas. I don't know where to go. I get emailed all the time. Where should I go to mortuary school? How do I find the best mortuary school for me? My local funeral home isn't helping at all, and they don't even have a part-time job. They won't let me even come in and observe and watch what I do, what they do, so that I can learn if this is the right business for me. So I think that's part of our early recruitment job, Paul, that we need to be doing as owners and managers in our companies.
Great idea. I know you mentioned in the book Pat Lencioni, the ideal team player.
Yes.
And I mean, hiring for hungry, humble, and smart.
Correct.
And can you speak to that a little bit and what that means and what that meant to your business?
Well, I think you have to look for people with passion. So that's the hungry part. They have to have a passion for what you do. And whether they've had a death in their life or some kind of experience in their life or the surrounding death, they're passionate about our profession. That's very, very important. The hungry part is they just really want to make a difference in people's lives. So the other side is the smart. Now you can do some assessments, you can do some testing, and smart doesn't mean dumb, the opposite of dumb. It just means people who really want to use their heads and their ideas and bring their ideas to your company. And we should be listening to those ideas.
Because we can teach them some of the skills, right?
Right. We can teach them some of that, but they have to come with knowing that and having ideas. And I always, when I interviewed young people, I would say, hey, Tell me what your ideas are for to improve funeral service overall. How should we be better serving people? And I wanted to hear what they had to say. That's that smart side, right, that you're looking for. And then the humble is really difficult to teach. If you read Pat Lencioni's book, the humility side, someone comes in a little too overconfident. Sometimes we've got some egos involved. We don't necessarily, we think highly of ourselves versus do we think highly of others? So
Right.
our focus needs to be on giving to others versus giving to ourselves, even
Well,
though we care.
To me, it's almost, and everyone comes from a different place, but it's a biblical principle to serve others first.
Correct.
So, and it's in humility part of that. And so when you're humble, I mean, you can be a servant leader. And I think that's what when I read that book, it's been a while since I've read the book, but we love Pat Lencioni, and we've read multiple of his books around our organizations too. So I
Yeah,
thought
The
we had some
Advantage.
similarities
Yeah,
there.
they're great books. Yeah, I love them. I too come from the same place. I was a JC, so service above self, and I was a Rotarian. I believe that those kind of theories of how we are to be as leaders are extremely important, and that's a hard one to interview for. It is one that you will see over time as people are working for you, whether or not they can become a humble person. And some of that takes some real training, coaching, and mentoring to get them there.
Good advice. Really good advice. You mentioned when you talk about the heart earlier, it made me think about Dr. Wolfeld, and he was also mentioned in your books. And so,
Yes.
Can you speak to your relationship with him and maybe what he helped to mentor you over your career?
Alan has been just an incredible gift to our profession. We met each other, back when we were in our 20s. He was working for a guy named Ken Muncie, Ken, I can't remember his last name, but he was in Muncie, Indiana. Alan was teaching and starting to teach on grief and loss, but he was also teaching on self-care. So my dad brought Alan into our company, and we did some testing on us, some assessments. We took the Myers-Briggs, if you've heard of that, and we learned a little bit about ourselves and how we were as people and how we were best going to function as a funeral director, as a caregiver to others, as a team member. So he did some team building with us. And Alan was just in his early beginnings before he started writing books. And then, of course, he went on to get his PhD in thanatology. We kept bringing Alan back over the years to do programs for our families, for hospice and clergy, and we became very good friends. So Alan and Sue have just been good buddies for a long, long time.
And he's right there in Colorado. His
He
center
is. He's right here in Fort Collins. And so we do try to see each other at least a couple of times a year, just visit, have a glass of wine together. He has taught me so much. When Dad died, we had a conversation, and we talked a lot about grief and loss and how hard it is as a funeral director when you're mourning at the same time you're trying to learn to run a family business. He was very, very supportive in my early years and continued to be over the years. And it always challenged me a little bit. He'd say, Lisa, what are you doing for yourself? How are you taking better care of yourself?
That sounds
what's on your
just
bucket
like
list?
it.
I
That
know.
sounds just
I know.
like
He still does it. He still reaches out to me probably at least once a month with an email. What are you doing about this? What are you doing about that?
That's so good. Well, thanks for sharing that. So, Lisa, tell me more about Women Funeral Lead. I've read a little bit about it. I don't know much about it. Tell us the story behind it.
Well, Paul, the first thing I did when I decided to write this book, my book, Wake Up Calls, was talk more about women in our profession and bring that into the book, because I'm found as a coach for the last 5 years, since 2019, I've been coaching young people in our profession who want to become leaders, managers, and some of them future owners. The majority of them that I've been coaching have been women. Just by natural design, Lisa's a coach, they reach out to me. And so what I found was that women are underserved, underdeveloped, and are seeking more knowledge on how to grow themselves as leaders, as well as future managers and owners. Or some of them are managers or owners, and they still need help with how to be a better manager, how to be a better owner. So
I love that they're raising their hand. I mean, they want help. They're like,
they do.
Show me the way.
They do, and they don't know where to find it. Now, we have lots of great associations out there that have wonderful programs, and it was amazing to me that many of these women don't even know about them. So they don't necessarily know about some of the programs, the leadership training, the business training, the universities that are out there by all our different associations. So I thought, I can only coach so many people in a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I did promise my husband I'd take some time for him too, and take some time for ourselves. And,
Oh, you're so good. You're so
yeah,
good.
I'm
Love that.
trying. I'm trying. I do love it, but I love coaching people. However, I'm one person. And there's such a wealth of knowledge out there in our profession with men and women that can help the future of this business. So as I was working with a company this last summer in 2024, I was working to discover what more can I do in my coaching company? What more can I do to help our profession? What more can I do to help women? I serve on the board of the Funeral Service Foundation currently, and they, of course, we help sponsor scholarships for a variety of NFDA and other programs that are out there. But I thought women are being underserved, and they're telling us this. So what can we do to help them? So I decided to take a stab at it and step out there. And I knew there would be some people maybe not in favor of doing something just for women. But
There's always naysayers, Lisa.
there
Always.
always are, exactly. So why not? Tell me why I shouldn't do this, right? So I got a group of friends together. We started thinking together. They're my current board of directors, some wonderful people, Elisa Carr from Kelco, Melissa Posey-Luce from Security National Life, former funeral director as well in her family business, and some other women to advise me. And I said, what is missing? What's the gap? What more can we do? And so that's how Funeral Women Lead started, with a concept in the fall of 24. In the winter or March of 25, we decided to roll it out and see, it's kind of like you put things up on the wall and you see what sticks. So we started off at ICCFA with a booth to just see what the interest was. We decided that we wanted to do a wellness summit for women, and we wanted to start a leadership academy for women, because these are the things that I was finding I was in teaching and working in with some of the women who were coming to me over the last 5 years of coaching. They needed help with their leadership development, their business skill development, and their wellness development of taking better care of themselves as a leader. So those three things drove us to create these programs. So
That's
we're
so
excited
good.
about the future of this,
I
right?
can feel your passion for it. So I
Yeah.
love that you took the initiative to do that. And I'm just thinking, one of the things you said, what more can I do? What more can we do?
Right.
That reminded me of John O'Leary. I don't know how well you know John O'Leary.
I know
you're
John. He's from St. Louis. I don't
Yeah.
know him personally, but I've listened to him speak many times and interacted with him. I just love what he's done. He's got this movie that just came out.
So on fire.
So on fire, and he's just so motivating. And that's kind of how I feel the women that are coming together. We're doing some strategic planning as well with a small group of women leaders throughout the country that are joining us to help set the future. And we intend to have an ongoing community of support for women. It's not a one and done program. It's something that you can belong to long term. We're also talking to the mortuary schools about putting Funeral Women Lead organizations inside of their schools so that when women graduate from school, they have a place of support to go to where they can help find mentors and coaches and development programs. On our resource center on our website, we will also have a large variety of scholarships and programs out there to help women find these associations in our industry that will help develop them further, and the scholarships that'll support them.
Well, your timing is great. I mean, women are really they're dominating in a lot of ways in the profession, which is great to see. And it's, especially from the early days when you talk about it. But some of our top salespeople are women,
Yeah.
Women funeral directors. A lot of new business owners are female. And
Correct.
I think that trend is just going to continue as we look at the stats coming out of mortuary school these days and others. I think the timing is really, really good that you have come up with these ideas.
Well, we hope so, because women are looking for a place where they can be accepted. They're really struggling when they're coming into some of these companies. They don't know how to be owners or managers of finance either. I didn't either. I mean, when my dad died, I'd never seen a profit and loss statement. I'd never seen
What's a balance sheet?
a balance sheet. What is that? What is that thing on the balance sheet that says you have this like deficit. What is that?
Yeah,
And it's
that's
a
not
large
good.
number.
Let's get
it
rid
was,
of that.
Exactly. It was pretty scary. So we want to help women in phase 2 of our Leadership Academy go into areas if they want to become a manager, they would like to learn how to manage people, as well as do they want to learn how to manage financially a business. If they're an owner, how do I become an owner? Where do I find funding to become an owner? And I believe your company offers some lending opportunities
That is
as
correct.
well, which I
That's
think is
correct.
critical for women in the future. If they want to become owners, how do they find the funding? We get that question all the time. I want to buy a funeral home. I want to be an owner, but I don't know how. So how can we teach them more how to do that? And we'll be having guest instructors come in, and of course, we'll be
Yay.
tapping into some of your people.
We would love to help. We would love,
Yeah.
it'd be our honor.
Yeah. We'd love
So
to have you.
there's lots of opportunity out there for the right people who have the same characteristics and skills and traits and just desire to help others. And I think what you said, people just aren't aware of the opportunities that are out there for them.
I agree.
And,
I agree. And we're taking a pretty strong stance. Paul, you'll see it on our booths at different conventions, but we believe that women are part of the key to the future success of this profession. And the reason we're saying that is because women bring their hearts every day to work. And this is the one thing I feel, all of us feel, that funeral service needs more heart. We need to show the consumer, the client families we're serving, that we aren't just a place that cares for the dead. We care for the living. Because if we just become caretakers of the dead, we've left a huge component out of those that are survivors. And when women bring their hearts, their ability to support those who are mourning into the profession, we believe it just makes the profession even better. However, I'm going to put a however in there because their hearts are hurting if they're not well cared for. So we in funeral service management, ownership, and who are creating the future businesses of the world need to be in touch with the heart of our people, especially the women that are on staff with them.
100%. And you mentioned a little bit in the book about just balance. And so as I'm listening, you talk about, women have unique needs to balance, right? So you have your parenting, being a mom, being a business owner, being a funeral director, and then you got your personal needs and well-being, mental state, and so forth. And so, how does one keep all that together? And maybe
You
what's the
juggle a
best
lot of
advice?
balls, you wear a lot of hats,
Yeah.
And so these are hard things. I mean, I was raising my children at the same time I was growing the family business, and eventually, unfortunately, my marriage did not make it with my children's father. So I was a single mom at the same time. But I've nursed in the funeral home,
Yeah.
and this was long before they even had the machines to create the milk for your babies. And so you get creative is what you do. You find ways to balance the needs of your children at the same time of the needs of your profession. And we as employers and managers have to understand that. We have to have more flexibility in the scheduling that we do and how we support people in the workplace, as well as a lot of these are single mothers that we're finding that are entering our profession. Some of them are second career, and they need time off when those babies are sick. And yep, you may have 2 or 4 or 6 funerals that day, but you're going to have to figure that out because you've got to give your people time off. And so
Yeah, we can be creative. There's problems we can
can.
solve. We put our minds to it.
I think so too.
Flexible scheduling and things along
Sure.
those lines.
So I think so too, and I think we can help them with childcare expenses. I think that's one of the things you can do with an HSA account. You can also do it sometimes through your benefit program. I think we're going to have to do a better job in our profession of helping support these young people as they're coming in, and dads too. I don't want to leave the dads out because there's a lot of dads that want to be there for their children as well. And we need to find a balance to help all these young people coming into the profession. I've heard stories which really concern me when employers are saying, well, you're a single woman, so if you plan on having children, don't if you want to enter funeral service. Now, isn't that sad?
That's very sad. It's not
Yeah.
good for the profession for sure.
Not at all. We are a family business. We need to show that we love and care for family. And even if we're not a family business and we're a corporate business, we still have to show that we care for our staff each and every day as they care for those who mourn.
And I think slowly but surely the world is recognizing some of these needs. And you see, my wife's a dentist. She's a specialist, and some similarities there when she came out she started practicing in the 90s. And she would take our kids to work sometimes if she had to, and do what you got to do. And but where I was going with that is that a lot of professions are having to be flexible and creative and just think differently than they did back in the day. And that's just opportunity.
It is part of business. We can't, and one of the things as employers we've got to stop saying is, well, we've always done it this way, right? And you just can't keep saying that to this next generation.
Lisa. We can't do that.
That's right. We can't do that. We can't.
How insane is that?
It is insane. It is insane because we need to change with the times. I mean, look what's happening in business and in our profession, especially since the pandemic. We've had the new technology, the AI is very present in our world and in our businesses. And AI can be used in so many wonderful ways to help teach and train the next generation of funeral professionals that I think we have to open our minds. And if you are in a place of thinking that you can't do that and you just don't want to do that, then I'm going to encourage you as a current owner to get out of their way, right? Maybe it's time you rethink who you are and who you want to be. You can't keep working into your 70s and 80s. Let it go. You can be there part-time, but you have to help train and develop these young people coming into our profession so that you can slow down, so that you can retire eventually. I've seen way too many owners overstay their welcome, and they need to probably, in my generation of baby boomers, it's probably time to face the reality and the truth that it's time to let the new generation serve.
Well, that's a wake-up call of a different kind, right?
It is.
We may have a wake-up call. If we can't find good people, we can't find help, our turnover is high, that's a wake-up call in its own right, and not blame the next generation. We need to blame maybe ourselves for not
Gotta look in the mirror.
Open. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
I just started thinking about wake-up call because, again, that's the title of the book, and that's what we've been talking about all day. But that makes a lot of sense to me.
It makes a lot of sense to me, too. And it's not easy. I mean, when I had to transition and discovered that neither one of my children wanted to be in the family business anymore, and my son, who had been licensed for 11 years, he had his MBA, I thought he was going to be our future owner, came to me one day and just said, "Mom, I just don't think this is who I am." Boy, talk about grief and mourning then, right?
Yeah, that would have been a hard day, yeah.
It was a hard day, but we spent more time talking about it throughout that next year, and I kept checking him, are you sure? Are you sure? If you want to go, let's look at financing. I'm not going to, you don't sell your family business to your children at the same price that you sell it to an entity outside, right? And that was never my intent. But at some point in time, they have to be true to themselves and understand if this is really what they want to do. If you don't want to serve families at some of the worst times in their life, if that doesn't light your fire and you don't want to care for people when they're mourning, then this is not the profession for you, right? Because
that's great advice for anybody, your kids or anyone.
Right. That's the essence of what we do. So my daughter's actually an event planner in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I've met your daughter before. She's
yeah,
awesome.
You have. And she's working more hours, I think, than I did as a young person. She's working nights, holidays, weekends.
Sounds like she loves it, though.
She loves it. And she says, I didn't want to do sad, Mom, because funerals are sad. So that was her choice. And I supported her all through her career. She went to Kendall College up in Chicago. She learned hospitality and event planning management, and she's now taken off in Las Vegas. My son became a stay-at-home dad. They had a third little one coming on, and he's stayed for the last few years helping raise that youngest child until they could go into school. And then
so how many grandkids do you have?
We have 6 between my husband and I.
Congratulations.
6, yeah.
I'm jealous. I only have 1, but my goal is to catch up to you here.
Yes, do. Yeah, they let's see. They range in age from 10 to 1.
Wow. What a blessing. Congratulations.
They are blessings. Thank you.
Well, good deal. I think we've peaked on a lot of things here. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we kind of wind down here?
I think that's it. I think, I would love for people to know that the proceeds from my book go back into charitable works that support women's education in our profession. So as we grow the proceeds from the book, as we grow the Funeral Women Lead Foundation, we're going to be giving back through scholarships, educational programs, and any way we can to support the community of these young women coming into our profession that want to become leaders someday.
That's so good. Lisa, I really appreciate you joining us today. And more than that, I just appreciate your courage and your passion for leadership and for the funeral profession. I love how you refer to the funeral profession as a profession and
Yes.
not an industry. And I hear it all the time as a funeral industry. And
You're right.
kind
Well,
of-
there's two ways to say it. Death care industry, funeral profession. Then some
Yes.
people are like, well, I own a cemetery, so I'm not in the funeral profession. So it's all in, your mindset and how you define it. As overall, are we an industry? Probably as the world looks at us, but inside, we are a profession that serves people at the worst time of their lives and supports them in ways that I think no one else can do like we do.
Well said. Well, today's been very inspiring, and I just want to encourage all of our listeners to reflect on their own leadership journeys, just as Lisa has done today, and how they lead their teams through change. So thanks, everyone, for joining us on this edition of Director's Playbook, where we share strategies and ideas on leadership to help ensure your funeral home's long-term success. Thank you so much, Lisa. Keep up the
You're
great
welcome.
work.
Thanks.